John, we're reeling a little bit today. Sad to report, there has been another malicious strike on Crowdsource the Truth. So people who are watching this right now at 6 p.m. Eastern are seeing us live on Crowdsource the Truth 2, or hopefully on the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. How you feeling tonight, John? Or whatever time it is where you are.
I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling okay.
Yeah. Well, we are live on the John E. Hoover channel with the simulcast, so that is good. Viewers of Crowdsource the Truth who are not yet subscribed to John E. Hoover should go over there. It's a steady increase in the subscribers, which is good. People can get onto the John E. Hoover YouTube channel for free, of course. And John, I think most people who are watching us know at this point that you and I are also doing a sponsor-exclusive show that's going to begin in just under 30 minutes on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and Subscribestar and Patreon for Crowdsource the Truth. I've been saying this today. It's more important than ever for people to join us on Patreon and Subscribestar because there is such a persistent effort to stifle not just Crowdsource the Truth, but all the guests who come on to Crowdsource the Truth. By becoming this hub where all the information comes in, it's created this incredibly powerful resource for viewers, but it's also put a target on the channel where these social engineers and just malicious jerks in general want to shut it down to stop everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's remarkable. I mean, you have all this pressure on your channel, and then they're plucking certain videos off of my channel. And if you remember, we've done a handful. We did, back in the midst of this whole coronavirus disaster, we did a couple of shows where rather than going patron only, rather than going to Patreon and Subscribestar, we stayed on YouTube because we had some really pivotal information, right?
Right.
And we told the audience that, you know, this is the kind of stuff we typically do when we go to Patreon and when we go to Subscribestar. And we did a 2-hour show, you, me, and Shepard Ambellis.
Oh, right.
And it was pulled.
Yeah.
It was pulled off my channel. And then the good news all over, so why so serious? You know, that caused all kinds of controversy, right? Because we simply were saying, hey, COVID deaths were going down.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Hang on. I got to stop you. Because what's happened is these edicts have come down where there's certain things that we're not even allowed to question. So I want to be very careful about what we discuss here because these new rules coming from not just YouTube, but so many social media platforms, they're literally saying questioning vaccine safety is grounds for removal. It's a violation of the terms of service. So I don't want to get into doing that right now, but I want people to understand what that actually means. You know, it's like if one scientist says, hey, Avandia is fantastic. It's going to lower your A1C. If you're a diabetic, you should take this. If we did a show with a cardiologist who said, you know, what I've been observing in my practice is that diabetics with XYZ cardiac history are experiencing cardiac arrest at an alarming rate, that would get us thrown off. You're not even allowed to question or put out any medical information that they determine could be questionable or possibly risk the public health. What do you think about that, John? No questions allowed.
Again, I think this is why you and I started, and obviously it's been misinterpreted, but when we started to discuss thalidomide, we weren't questioning the safety of any vaccine, right? And I've said this before on the show. I'm not anti-vax in any way. I've had vaccines when I went to Africa. I got all kinds of shots before I went. And my kids have been vaccinated for, you know, whatever the heck kids get vaccinated for. I'm not an anti-vax guy. Yeah, well, to an extent. So I'm not an anti-vax guy. What I have talked about is CRISPR and how CRISPR is being used now in the influenza vaccine
No,
we're just
don't
not
even say that stuff. That could get us thrown
okay.
off. Don't
Okay.
say
All right.
that.
So,
I
all
mean,
right,
look
so
at this. It's
hypothetically,
crazy. In 2020, we have to
right.
like tiptoe like we're dancing in between raindrops and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I feel like I live in North Korea. Oh my God, he said it. Throw him off the air.
I mean,
So, all right. So hypothetically, if I understand CRISPR and I am not a doctor, so do not listen to a damn thing I say, right? I
right.
am not a doctor. I do not know what I'm talking about. However, I do believe that CRISPR was modeled after the way viruses replicate. And I could be wrong about this, but the way viruses enter a cell and then do their business and then replicate is effectively what CRISPR is. Now, I could be wrong, and somebody can call into the show next week and join us if you're an epidemiologist. No, but I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this is my understanding. So please, I'm not a doctor. Don't listen to a thing I say. But right, I've played one on TV, and all that's all that matters in some cases, right? So if you study CRISPR, my understanding is that the way CRISPR works is modeled off of the way viruses replicate. And they do it by inserting themselves into the DNA chain. And they can insert the RNA, and this is where it gets complicated. But effectively, that's CRISPR. And my understanding is that the newer influenza vaccines use this technology. And you know what? You've had Dr. Judy Mikovits on. You could ask her. Ask her
They
if
hate
I'm
it
right or
when I
wrong.
have her on. They hate it. They don't like
I
anything
love,
she
I think,
says. I love what she says, but they hate it. They've put in these rules that are,
yeah.
From a legal standpoint, so vague, they can basically be used to knock out, frankly, almost anything anybody says.
All right. What she is a PhD in epidemiology, correct?
Yes.
She's about as qualified and experienced a person. She worked at Fort Detrick. I mean, is there a reason to believe? Is she an undercover triple agent spy working for Russia, according to
I think
according
she's
to
very
Adam Schiff?
credible. And I think
Yeah,
that she's bringing
I think
forward
she's
remarkable
remarkable.
information, but they just hate it because, they're literally saying if you question the WHO, like it's like the king. This is literally like you told me in Thailand that or maybe somebody else told me there's some
Yeah,
law that
Les Majest.
insulting the
Yeah,
king.
Les Majest. Les
Right.
Majest. Yeah.
This
Les
is what it
Majest.
is.
Absolutely. Well, questioning authority and using data to do it,
Not allowed.
which is really our style, right? We're
Not
using
allowed.
data. We're using the CDC's data, and we're not giving any medical advice. So I want to be real clear at the outset of the show. This show gives zero medical advice. I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor, and consider this a humor show. This should be like Jimmy Dore or Joe Rogan, and these are jokes, right? And if you guys learn a thing or two in the midst, that's great, okay? But in your interview with Dr. Mikovits, if you go to 8 minutes and 30 seconds, she says something astounding. And maybe we'll do that when we get to the patron-only show. I've got a couple timestamps here where she says some things that make the earth move. This is history is being made, and a lot of people just heard it and just kept listening. Didn't take note of it. And I've got note of some things. So maybe when we go patron only, I want to point these things out because it's very, very powerful. And I think it may lead us to the heart of what the hell is going on here.
Right.
Because the story that we've been told and the story that's on mainstream news on television, that's not what's going on.
I don't know if we're allowed to question television. That might be not allowed. Television is the god.
And Mickey Mouse is real, and Donald Duck is real, and it's all
challenging
real.
Mickey Mouse is grounds for execution, apparently.
Most likely. So, what's interesting, grounds for execution. There's a story that Bob Woodward recounts that's a fascinating story. about, and Bob Woodward, right, from
The
All the
Naval
President's Men. He was
Intelligence Operation. Yeah, I know him. CIA
right.
stooge posing as a journalist.
All right. But he was played by Robert Redford, right? So you got to hand it to the guy, right? Robert Redford played him in the
Let's
movie.
just be careful. We got a lot of
All
CIA
right,
agents
all right,
probably played by Robert Redford.
all right. So net of it is though, he tells a story about going to interview Gaddafi in Libya, and I'll probably butcher the story. But the story is he goes to interview Gaddafi. Gaddafi keeps him waiting 3, 4 days or something. And he ventures out of the hotel and goes to the local university or goes to a cafe near the local university and finds out everybody's like moping around. And the story is supposedly that they hung a couple students for
Whoa.
graffitiing on a wall. And one of the things that he says, and the way he recounts this story, is that, sometimes you go into a story thinking this is the story. And then you find out that, well, that's not really the story. The real story is something else. And so he finds out at the coffee shop that 2 students from the university were hung for graffitiing on a wall or something, some anti-Gaddafi sentiment. And he publishes that in the Washington Post, not the interview with Gaddafi, and he gets out of Libya. So the point of his story is sometimes you go in with certain expectations thinking you're going to cover this, but the story shifts. And I think that's what's happened to us here. We came into this whole thing with COVID and coronavirus and an outbreak that started in Wuhan. But Wuhan, with its 4,500 deaths, doesn't even match Michigan anymore, right? Michigan has more people dead than Wuhan.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So at this point, the story's different, right? Early on in the outbreak, we were trying to figure out different types of things. Now that we've got so many people that have died, there's a record, right? We have a record of what's happened and what's happened where. And that allows us now to use some hindsight, some 2020 hindsight. And the 2020 hindsight that we have, the good news is the WHO and the CDC record this stuff in a database that I used to sell and I used to configure.
The Oracle product that you were a product specialist for.
Right. So all the data is in Oracle databases. So getting it out, sorting it, sifting it, making sense of it, I spent only 30 something years doing it, right? So again, when it comes to qualifications, I'm not a doctor, but I sure as hell know data and I sure as hell know databases. So when we're going into the data behind the story, you're not going to find many people in America that are more qualified than I am to address this. So when YouTube or whomever wants to question anything that we're saying here about the data, remember we talked about most of the people that work at Google are 29 years old or younger. The median age is 29 and below.
How many of them were born in America is another question.
Well, I'm not even interested in that. I'm simply saying they don't have adult brains. They don't have adult brains. They're 26 years old and they're making decisions. And I've got 30 plus years of data experience, right? I was working with Oracle in the 80s.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Right? I think it's important to know if they are or are not American, not to discriminate, but if you grew up in a country, let's say, where insulting the king could get you, what's the penalty? Death?
Locked up. I think it's 10 or 15 years.
Okay.
10 or 15
So
years.
just saying something like, I think Joe Biden is an idiot, which I do, if he were elected president, in addition to the country being even worse than it is right now, I could be thrown in jail. So if you're somebody who grew up in that environment and now you're a fancy person making a ton of money, working at Twitter or YouTube or wherever you are, you're going to want to exercise that power against somebody else. That's how your mind works.
It's a valid argument. And we've talked about Albert Ellis and activating events, beliefs, and then consequences, right? And we all have individual beliefs. Even identical twins have different beliefs. Everybody's beliefs are different. And what Albert Ellis explained so simply, so eloquently, you have any activating event, whether it's the Vegas shooting, whether it's the outbreak of a virus, whatever this activating event is, a plane crash, whatever it is. And then, based on your beliefs, which are a lifetime of experiences and educations and things you've seen and read and heard, you then have your output, say the consequences. So the activating event is constant, right? That's the shooting or the viral outbreak. Your beliefs and my beliefs tend to have a lot of overlap, and that's why we see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but not everything. We don't agree on everything, right? We argue sometimes about stuff, but we have a lot of respect for each other, and a lot of our beliefs are somewhat similar, and people tend to flock towards people who have somewhat similar beliefs, right? For the most part, right? So
this guy has an institute, John.
Oh, he's brilliant, man. I mean, you can learn so much reading.
It's here in New York.
He's brilliant. Guy's just brilliant. So, activating events, belief systems. And as soon as you realize everybody has a different belief system, this goes into Daniel Goleman and emotional intelligence, right? Just understanding that your perspective and my perspectives are going to be different because we had different upbringings, went to different schools, read different books, we listened to different albums on different days. I went to different concerts than you did. And yet, we both think Joe Biden's in over his head.
Yeah.
Now, yet, I may feel differently about Katie Porter than you do, right? I kind of like her. You might not, right? I might like Bob Woodward and think he doesn't work for the CIA, right? And
You'd be wrong.
Disagree. Yeah. But you and I don't end up having a huge fight and blow up, and we're not going to do a show anymore because of that, right?
No,
that's
certainly not. As a matter of fact,
right.
I think in short order, I could show you evidence that would cause you to agree with me that Bob Woodward is doing something for the CIA.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, I'm sure you could.
He may be
I'm sure you
doing
could.
things.
Hypothetically speaking. Yeah, this is why I named the show that. My podcast, hypothetically speaking, is because...
It doesn't seem like YouTube cares, because hypothetically speaking, they like to strike videos and prevent channels from live streaming and stuff like that. So just to reiterate what's going on, John, because people get confused. They're going to see this particular strike, for whatever reason, I'm still able to upload to the Jason Goodman channel, just can't live stream for the next 2 weeks. So people who are watching us right now on Crowdsource The Truth 2, or watching the simulcast on the John E. Hoover YouTube channel, they're getting to see us live. We began at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm here in New York. And if people aren't yet subscribed to John's channel, it's a good way to stay on top of these broadcasts and also enjoy all the other work that John does. I do want to remind people that it's just critically important to the survival of the show, the survival of Crowdsource The Truth, that people sponsor not only the guests on Subscribestar and Patreon /IM John Cullen, but also to sponsor Crowdsource The Truth on Subscribestar.com and Patreon.com/Crowdsource The Truth. And we're going to be starting the sponsor exclusive show there in just about 10 minutes. John, can you give us an overview of what we're going to talk about without saying anything that might hypothetically get the YouTube overlords' panties in a bunch?
Yes, I'm going to be very careful. Do you have that PDF that I sent you a little earlier? We can show one or two slides, and I'll share that with the audience. Well, first of all, I'm noticing that the views on my videos are down dramatically. So even though I keep gaining more and more subscribers, I'm guessing something's broken at YouTube, because you gain subscribers, but my videos have fewer and fewer views. So that's kind of strange. Yeah, it's like selling season tickets to a ball game and nobody shows up to the stadium. It's a little weird. If I were running YouTube, I'd be concerned. It's like, what's the point of having 30,000 subscribers if you get 1,300 views on a video?
Closing words real quick, because we got to transition soon.
All right, COVID problem. Let's ask a couple questions. This is what we're going to get into tonight on the patron-only hour. I want to look at these two different phenomenon. Right now, this is not controversial that the coronavirus and the influenza virus are different viruses. We all know that, right? One is round,
Yeah.
and one looks like a tic tac. Okay, so one is spherical, and one is oblong and tic tac shaped, right? And one of them is very old, right? So the influenza H1N1 virus, we know first reared its head in modern history in 1918, known as the Spanish flu. And this coronavirus thing is the one in green. And we've been tracking that at the same time. And this is something that you and I have been doing, but nobody else in the news has been doing because they can only do one thing at a time. So if they're going to chew gum, they have to stand still. Okay. So let's move to the next slide, and then we'll go patron only in a second. All right. So Dr. Fauci has said that Russia's claim that their vaccine, so he's saying that that's bogus. Now, well, they may kick him off of Newsweek for questioning the efficacy of a Russian vaccine.
No, they like questioning Russia. I mean, you can blame Russia.
Right.
That's okay. You can't question Fauci is the problem.
Okay. So why are we questioning the efficacy of Russia's vaccine? You wouldn't take that vaccine? When we sent masks and PPE equipment to Russia, did they not put it on? Did
yeah, why wouldn't he want to check it out and try it if they say it works?
Right, exactly. So
you just say it's bogus?
And what? Exactly. How does he know it's bogus? Based on what? Is there evidence? What's scientific evidence? So the fact that he's questioning the efficacy of their vaccine, and we are being leaned on for supposedly questioning the efficacy of it.
Wow.
What?
But look at his quote. He says it's not bogus. This is on a podcast. It says it's not bogus because he has a vaccine. What's bogus is to say you have a vaccine that's safe and effective. That's Fauci questioning the effectiveness of vaccines.
Right.
Can I get in trouble for that?
Well, you and I have never said that because, very simply, there is no vaccine. We don't have a coronavirus vaccine. So there is no vaccine that you and I have been questioning the efficacy of because we don't have one. The only thing we questioned the safety of was thalidomide, which obviously we have a record of what it did. And yes, that's an uncomfortable conversation to talk about. It's uncomfortable to talk about Zantac causes stomach cancer and that Accutane causes people to have suicidal thoughts.
I don't know if we're supposed to talk about that.
Right. But that's history, right? And, you know, at some point we get to this give me liberty or give me death kind of moment where you can't just shut everybody up forever. Right?
John, you told us that you were prescribed Accutane in your youth, and I had a member of my family who did. So you and I discussing the historical safety or danger of something. I mean, how does that policy work?
Personal.
What if we wanted to have a panel of people who took Accutane and how it affected their life? We can't do that.
Do you know how many people commented on those videos that either someone in their immediate family, brother, sister, had thalidomide and died?
I thought you were going to say Accutane.
No, thalidomide. People watching our show commented that their brother or sister was born with it. One was born without kidneys and died. It's personal stuff. This stuff is real. It's highly personal. It matters, and this is adult conversation. This is not for children.
Not allowed to talk about it.
Toys. We're not opening toys. We're not playing with Barbie.
You can do that. You can test out your Tesla. You can modify your PC.
It's okay. Right, but it's okay if Dave Chappelle wants to come on and say that, Candace Owens got this, that, or the other. Right. That's okay. Right. Yes. But we can't have an adult conversation about really meaningful things. All right. In California, we now have the first case of the plague in 5 years. How likely are you to catch it?
Oh, boy. Bubonic plague?
Yes.
What is that? For people defecating in the street?
Black death because of the rats and the mice. So California has its first case of Black Death plague in 5 years. And now, but look at the second part of the headline. Look at the second part of the headline.
Oops. How likely
What's
are
the
you to get it?
Yeah, how likely are you to catch it?
Don't hang out with
What's the
rats and
likelihood?
feces.
Well, right now, it's 1 in 39 million since California has its first case. So there's 1 in 39 million. So the likelihood that you're going to get it is 2 in 39 million. That's how likely you are to catch it.
Wow.
Don't play with rats. Don't play with mice. Put them down. All right, let's go to the next slide real quick. And then
Well,
we'll
no,
go
no. We're out of time. We gotta make it over to Patreon and Subscribestar. We'll get into all of this on subscribestar.com/I am John Cullen, patreon.com/I am John Cullen, and Subscribestar and Patreon for Crowdsource the Truth. 30 seconds. Hit us with it, John.
For those of you who haven't yet seen the movie Greenland, it's almost raining rocks, and no golf umbrella is going to save you. We have been experiencing some very close whiz-bys from some rather sizable meteors, similar to the podcast that was removed that we did with Shepard and Bella. So I guess we're not allowed to talk about space. We're not allowed to talk about anything outside the ionosphere, or the show could be pulled. All right,
you can't question space, but we do have to go because we need a certain amount of time to.
All right, so there's a rumor that Jet Propulsion Laboratory tracks these things, and we've had the closest shaves we've ever, like, they've never been this close and recorded, ever. So they've either hit, but nothing's ever come as close as the past couple weeks. So we're having one heck of a ride. We know one of them is coming September 1st. Yeah, and it appears we're going through another meteor. I think we're in the Perseid meteor cloud.
I don't know if you know how to tell what 30 seconds is, but we're past it. We got to go, John. I know you want to talk about this. We'll be back on Patreon and Subscribestar. Thanks for watching, everybody.